Thank you very much. Hi, everybody. Really happy to have a chance to be with you here today. It's my first Slush, but it's an amazing event, so thank you very much for allowing us to come join you here. Tencent is a fairly large Chinese company, but it might not be so well known in the West, so I'll just do a quick introduction of who we are. So I'm going to briefly tell you the entire speech today in a couple of words. 1, China is big. 2, China is difficult. 3, Tencent has done pretty well. And 4, we can help you come to China, perhaps. So this is a brief history of our company. We're a 16-year-old internet company listed in Hong Kong. We have several platforms. A majority of our operations are in social or in gaming. We have several major platforms, including QQ, as well as WeChat and Qzone. Just to tell you a few of the statistics, because we're from China, we always have big numbers. Our platform of QQ last quarter had 820 million monthly active users, of which coming from smart devices was 542 million active users. And the PCU, that's the peak concurrent users online at any given moment, is 217 million PCU. Our combined MAU for WeChat and Weixin, WeChat is the international service hosted outside of China. Weixin is the Chinese service hosted inside China, was 468 million monthly active. And our Qzone social networking product was 629 million monthly active, of which 506 million were coming from smart devices. So China's a very large country, and we have the largest social networks and social platforms in the country. Our company is divided into 7 divisions, 6 business units, as well as technology. I come from the interactive entertainment group, which is basically the games division. Games division for the last 4 or 5 years has accounted for just over half of Tencent's revenue and similar share of profits. So I'll be talking a lot today about games. China is big. You can read the numbers for yourself. I would just like to point out to everyone, when I joined the company a year ago, I was told that China would end up, last year's mobile gaming revenue of $2.2 billion would probably this year be $2.9 billion. Then after a few months, that was revised to $3.6 billion. And now I'm actually hearing that this year's mobile gaming revenue in China will probably be $3.9 billion. So to put this in comparison, Japan and the US are both around $5.5, $5.7 billion, and will grow to around $5.8, $5.9 billion next year. China, last year was $2 billion, this year is $4 billion, next year will be $6 billion market for mobile gaming alone. And within that $6 billion, Tencent, we expect that we will share out to third-party developers around $500 million ourselves. But China is hard. China is a very difficult and fragmented market. If you look at it in terms of devices, there are so many low-end Android devices in China that you need to make sure that your game is compatible with. It's much more complex than the rest of the world. The rest of the world, you can optimize for 5, 10, maybe 50 devices. In China, we start at 100 devices, and then we go to the next 200, 300, 400 devices to make sure that you're compatible with everything. For instance, in the West, you can design a game that just works for iPhone 5 or maybe iPhone 4S. Because who really develops for iPhone 4 anymore? Well, in China, there's a very small percentage of the market still using iPhone 4, but that small percentage of 700 million smartphone users is still a very large number of people. And since we're a mass market service at Tencent, we need to make sure that our games work for all those people. Also, a network usage. In China, there are still large areas of the country covered by 2G. 4G adoption has just begun, and 3G is, there. But who still develops for 2G connections in the West? Very few people. And so these are some of the different considerations in the Chinese market that make it harder for Westerners to bring their games there. That said, Chinese gamers are becoming very mature. China has one of the most well-developed gaming communities in the world. We've been doing free-to-play in China for a really long time, and our gamers are now shifting over to mobile in a big way. We are discovering that whether it's from the amount of time people are spending on mobile, the amount of money they're spending on mobile, the engagement with their devices, we're seeing a massive shift in the users going over to the mobile space. And so it means that the Chinese users are becoming much more demanding. If you look in the Western top grossing charts, as I believe it's been mentioned a few times here today, most of the top grossing games in the West don't change for the last year or two. Well, in Asia and in China specifically, our top grossing charts change every month, sometimes every week. There's a whole new batch of games in there. And by the way, very few of them are Western games. With the exception of a couple great games from Finland, pretty much the entire top 50, entire top 100 is entirely local games. So about a year ago, in August of last year, Tencent started launching mobile games. Our first game was incredibly simple and designed to get the word out there about how you can use your device to play. And it had an amazing response. We've had tremendous growth over the last year. In Q3 of last year, when our first mobile games were launched, our mobile gaming revenue was 0. Q4 of last year, we reported about $100 million. Q1 of this year, about $300 million. Q2, about $470 million. And Q3, about $425 million in quarterly revenue from China. It took 5 years for us to reach over 100 million monthly active players in the PC gaming era. It took 5 months for us to reach over 100 million daily active players in the mobile gaming era. So we're seeing this as a huge shift that we're really enjoying riding the wave of for now. We've launched about 30 games in the last year. As you can see, almost all of them go immediately to the top of the downloading charts, and about half of those have been to the top of the top grossing chart. We have every month since the beginning of the year, according to App Annie, have had 7 out of the top 10 grossing. We usually have around 13 or 14 out of the top 20 grossing in the China iOS charts. The Android charts are hard to see because, of course, Google Play is not really active in China. There are multiple marketplaces. There's basically 3 marketplaces that have emerged, all 3 of which reach 95, 99% of the population, and ours is one of those 3. These are statistics we haven't before shared with people in the Western world, so I'm very happy to have the chance to share them with you today. You can see on the left-hand side, this is the mobile gaming market by revenue in China, and Tencent accounts for about half, you can see. On the right-hand side are some of the specific games. So these are monthly revenue in terms of renminbi. So we have those top 5 games, you can see, the top 3 games you can see are doing over 50 million renminbi per month. It's about 1 to 6 to the US dollar, so that's around $8 million, a bit over $8 million in monthly revenue. The next 2 games doing over 30 million renminbi a month, that's over $5 million in monthly revenue. Next 3 games below that are doing above 10 million renminbi, which is about $1.7 million in monthly revenue. So you can see that we have these 5 games that we call 国民经济, the national economic level of games, all of which have reached over 70 million daily active players. So when we think about bringing games to China, we want to bring the best games to China that our players will love, but also games from developers that can support a massive game that coming to China. The opportunity in China is vast, but China is really difficult. And so it is still possible to assign a couple engineers to do a Chinese language version, throw it over the wall, and see what you get. And if that's your plan, that's fine. There's lots of companies out there that support that. There's right next door to us, there's a company called iDreamSky. It's the largest distributor of third-party games in China. They take your game, they localize it, they launch it. That's great. What we're looking for on our side, and this is what everybody asks me, what kind of game is Tencent looking for? We need your A game. We need you to bring your best team and come and spend months working on a specific version of the game for China, because that's what you need to do in order to support 10 million, 30 million, 50 million daily active users. We've taken this strategy from the PC era, and as you can see on the top, a record of the Chinese publicly listed gaming companies over the years, we've enjoyed tremendous success in the PC era from doing this. What began as a relatively open, equal competition amongst different players in the Chinese gaming sector, over the past 4 or 5 years has just seen Tencent really pull away from everybody else in terms of revenue. And a big part of that is because we publish the world's best games. What a lot of people don't realize is a tremendous amount of our success over the years has come from third-party games. Now, we do develop our own as well, and we do believe that a good game publisher needs to have their own game development capabilities to understand what it is to develop a game. But if you look at our history, whether it's from Korea with Crossfire and Dungeon Fighter, or League of Legends coming from America, more recently we've launched FIFA this year, Blade and Soul at the end of last year. We have had the world's best games that we can bring to China. But it has to be the right timing. A lot of people ask me, when is the right time to bring my game to China is one of the most important things. 3 or 4 years ago, when we signed Call of Duty with Activision and announced we were bringing Call of Duty Online to China, people said, you're crazy. China's a Crossfire nation, low-end PCs, such a high-end game like Call of Duty would be very difficult to succeed in China. But now, 3 or 4 years later, with China's continued rise and economic development and better PCs that everybody is able, now perhaps soon, hopefully it will be the right time for it to launch. Now, if you're able to bring your game to China, these are the things that we're able to offer you, and we welcome you to please come and talk to us about how to bring your game to China. Of course, I've already said we have all the traffic. We have about 30 different apps that each have over 10 million DAU, and all of them will feed traffic to our game centers. And so that's the source of all of our users. And since our core is really social, what you know in the West is even more true in China, which is if you can integrate social capabilities into a game, if you can get friends playing a game together, then the retention rate for that game goes up tremendously. These are some of the games that we've already launched, and you can see as the number of friends increases, the retention rate, or the number of sessions played for the users in that game increases dramatically. In addition, we offer a huge analytics package to support. Of course, we have all the servers to support your game and all the users that we'll be sending to it, and the analytics to make sure that you and our teams can optimize the game in a continuous process, as well as integration of all the payment solutions. Payments in China are very difficult. There's about 30 different types of payment channels that you need to integrate. So trying to integrate all those on your own is basically impossible unless you're a Chinese company. So almost everybody has to find a publisher or come and a partner for China. Finally, security is also a key consideration. China is a country full of gamers and full of engineers, and who are very good at figuring out ways, if they can, to not necessarily pay for the monetization links in your game. And so we have, with our years of free-to-play experience in China, have quite a degree of experience when it comes to protecting the security of your game. So that's all I wanted to say today. With one final thing, I just wanted to point out we have lots of great partners in China that are large companies. We also do want to work with smaller developers as well. And so if you're an indie developer, we were sponsoring the IGDA Finland event last night and told the indie developers there the same thing. I'd encourage you to go to our dev page where we allow open signups. We have our own Android store that allows anybody who wants to link their to integrate our SDK into their game and publish it on our Android store. It's called My App, and it has 100 million daily downloads, reaches 97% of the Chinese population, and you can publish your game in China without talking to us at all. Just go on the online sign up. Only problem is most of the pages are in Chinese. My apologies for that. We do have some in English, and we're trying to get better at it. But if I've seen lots of Chinese students studying in Finland, and hopefully you can hire one of them to help you out in the process. Thanks very much for your time today, guys, and welcome you to come to China and visit us soon in the future. Thank you very much.